you're a historian professor. You know that, right?
Oh.
Well, think about it. Donald Trump was put in exile. So was Churchill after the Darnells. You know what the Darnells, because you're a professor, right? Mm-hmm. You do? Mm-hmm. Okay. Can you tell me about the Darnells?
I would rather focus primarily on...
If you're a World War I professor and you don't know about the Darnells? Okay. Anyway, no, but this is important because everyone says, this is what you're paying for, everybody. Because it's interesting. They say, well, the similarities between Weimar Germany and Trump, okay, but Churchill and Trump had a lot of similarities in their rise to power. So did Thatcher and Trump.
Israel versus Hamas, good guy versus bad guy. Russia versus Ukraine. Who's the good guy and who's the bad guy?
Both are bad, one is worse.
Okay.
Which way round?
Russia is worse than Ukraine.
Okay, so why haven't we pursued that?
What I would love to hear from you, genuinely, is what you believe the Trump administration has done in these first 4 months that is making the economic futures of these young people better.
Can I tell you what it has to do with tariffs, actually? Because I'll complete the point, because you have a PhD and I didn't go to college, so let me maybe make sense of it for you, okay? But I was saying, what it has to do with tariffs is that they don't trust what the experts have been saying, because the experts locked down this generation and unnecessarily masked them for 2 years. So when the experts say tariffs don't work, excuse us when we say, actually, you have completely invalidated all of your predictions the last couple of years. Do you see how they connect?
Well, I see how that connects to how people think about tariffs. I think that's different than what tariffs actually do.
Well,
and it's perfectly fine to be frustrated.
That's what they do.
Now you let me talk.
Well, hold on.
You let me talk.
Well,
you keep telling me not to interrupt you. I'm not interrupting you.
That's what you think they do. I'm going to add some context to what you're saying. However, we have not yet done an experiment of tariffs as the incumbent economic superpower when we have mass robotics, artificial intelligence, we are energy independent, and our greatest adversary is energy dependent. So you don't know what's going to happen, and the American people voted for the experiment.
Well, then let me redirect you back to the question that I asked you and that you didn't answer.
So let's continue with this heated debate.
I'm actually an instructor in history. I teach at the college level, and I have a lot of my coverage. My main area is World War I and World War II. And I really hate it when I'm teaching those classes and then we have a political discussion and students immediately go to the fascistic kind of like Hitler comparison. But that's my question that I have for you. At what point have you seen the development of what's happening currently right now to Trump's rise to power, his progression to getting his second term, compared to Weimar Germany during the in-war period? Because there's a lot of correlations there, and this isn't propaganda. I can give you list after list after list from an objective point of view, because I'm sure you consider yourself to be an historian. Like I've seen you in videos before doing very well interacting with the literature, and if that's the case in history, if you're asking a question, testing a theory, or filling in a gap, asking that question shouldn't be as controversial as it should be, especially if you're looking from objective means.
Okay, fair question. Do you also, and I will answer the question, but do you also correlate President Trump's rise to second power to Winston Churchill's?
No, I wouldn't.
But they have way more in common than the Weimar Germany one. And you're a historian professor, you know that, right? Well, think about it. Donald Trump was put in exile, so was Churchill after the Darnells. You know what the Darnells, because you're a professor, right? You do? Okay. Can you tell me about the Darnells?
I would rather focus primarily on...
If you're a World War I professor and you don't know about the Darnells? Okay. Anyway, no, but this is important because everyone says, this is what you're paying for, everybody. Because it's interesting. They say, well, the similarities between Weimar Germany and Trump, okay, but Churchill and Trump had a lot of similarities in their rise to power. So did Thatcher and Trump. The point being is there's a lot of European examples you can point to. However, I will concretely answer the question. They have huge things that they disagree on and that there were big differences. Was Hitler pro-free speech or anti-free speech?
He wasn't necessarily pro-free speech, especially when it got towards the end of the Weimar Republic.
Yeah, I mean, he would imprison journalists and, put his political opponents in jail. And so I guess the question is, has Donald Trump been pro-free speech or anti-free speech?
If I can give you some comparisons that I would necessarily see. I mean, if you look at, you have a populist movement, right? You have someone who has a cult of personality, a very effective rhetoric. If you look at the assassination attempts that were on Hitler and on Trump, if you look at even the iconography that you have within the MAGA hats, you have a white lettering on a red background. If you even go even further...
I got another one you forgot. Did you know that Hitler had a dog?
No. So the very nature of history is seeing a level of comparison of analysis. Once again, I'm not.
Oh my goodness, Hitler was also a vegetarian, so vegetarians are also likely to kill their whole population.
If I could give you another example, and because after my question, I would like
This
to
is
ask
such a
scenario.
sloppy analysis, and you know it.
No, because I'm trying to step piece at a time to ask you, because the question isn't a definitive. You're trying to build an argument, which is the very nature of it. And to sit down and observe and ask these questions, because it tends to get to the right that there's this accusation that certain comparisons aren't allowed on the left. And so I'm asking you, like, in a high level of integrity, do you see these comparisons? Not to call Trump Hitler. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to ask is, if you're sitting down paying attention, at what point would you say maybe you're starting to exceed the level of someone who's trying to act as a liberator to getting to the point of the despot?
Well, first of all, I think the entire premise is wrong. You cannot draw a linear connection with every figure of history to the moment of time. That, first of all, that's just an incredibly sloppy way of looking at things, because then everything becomes Nazi Germany and everything is Hitlerian. For example, people are like, oh, Joe Biden is acting like Hitler, which, by the way, he acted far more as an autocrat than Donald Trump ever would, locking some political opponents in jail. One second. Instead, you have to look at every moment in time, its own context, and its own perspective. And I would say, there's a lot more depth and richness of history than just what happened during the horrors of World War II. As I mentioned, Churchill's rise to power, Thatcher's rise to power, the Elizabethan period. I think that Donald Trump is much more like Justinian's reign or Marcus Aurelius than anything that you could connect to Donald Trump, connect to Adolf Hitler. But at what point, that's a hypothetical, and I refuse to answer hypotheticals, but I would have to throw it back at you.
It's not a hypothetical, it's a factual comparison.
No, you asked a hypothetical. You asked me, hypothetically, at what point would I draw a line? That is a hypothetical by definition, Professor.
Well, a progression towards a conclusion of the evidence that's presented.
But I reject answering hypotheticals.
I'm trying to bring up the factual information in order to get to a conclusion.
Instead, allow me to have you answer a very specific question.
Okay.
Would you agree that there are creeping similarities between the Democrat Party's seizure against free speech, their criminalization of political opponents, to communist totalitarian dictatorships of the 20th century? Two people can play this game.
I would make a comparison to the Biden's presidency as the old regime that fell apart before he had the rise of the populist figure that was there. I would shift this slightly to get away from the comparison to Hitler. Could you compare America currently right now to the interwar period Weimar Republic, where you had hyperinflation, devaluation of the fiat money, you had people who were suffering when it came to the purchasing power of their labor. It got to the point that even Germany, Berlin, was the center of decadence and degeneration. Those conversations are being had right now. So I would even make the argument, if you want to get away from the trigger word of Hitler, that the economic, social, and cultural environment the Weimar Republic had is very akin to what's happening right now.
I think it's more similar to 1980 America. We had a terrible inept president by the name of Jimmy Carter or Joe Biden that sleptwalk America into weakness and wokeness, and a figure like Ronald Reagan or Donald Trump revitalized our country. I don't have to look to the Weimar Republic. We have 1980 to point to. That's a way better example than, and by the way, there's like 15 things wrong with your argument. Number one, Adolf Hitler.
It's not an argument, it's a question.
It sounds like an argument, but fine.
You're constructing it into an argument.
The embedded argument within your question is what's wrong with your
contention.
The question
was, is there comparable nature to now and Weimar journey? I'll make one more thing that would change.
Sparingly and
I would remove
very
from the
weak
1980s. If I could shift it from the 1980s, where it's not the same.
Can I just can I answer the differences? Because the similarities are one thing.
I want to give you one more difference. One more similarity between interwar period and now. When it came to Hitler's rise in power, you had the first constitutional republic in Weimar Germany, in which he later superseded with certain racial laws, certain citizen laws. There was a creation of an identifiable other in order to consolidate and coagulate the populist movement. Okay? Is that not happening right now with the same narrative that's happening with illegal immigrants?
Well, no, because it's not based on any race. It's whether or not you came into the country correctly and legally.
No, there were citizenship
ethically.
laws. There were the Reich citizenship laws in which they defined what a citizen was and what was not allowed to be part of the German population, which was constitutionally committed.
Got it. So just to be clear, when Bill Clinton deported a bunch of people, he was also kind of acting similar to the interwar period?
We're going towards the national narrative right now. Right now, there's no question that
let me go at length a little bit. This is such a sloppy argument for many reasons.
I'm not making an argument. I'm making a comparison.
There's such a sloppy comparison for many reasons.
How is it a sloppy comparison?
Because there's so many differences. Can I name some of the differences?
History doesn't repeat, it rhymes. There's going to be similarities to it, not the exact same.
Well, but no.
And my
but
question to you was
differences
simply,
are
do you
distinct.
not recognize the similarities?
I reject so many of your core premises, largely because if you have any political leader in the West, you could start to try to connect dots of what happened in the 1930s and 40s and then say, well, this is very similar to the interwar period, and this guy's a
That's
populist.
history. That's the study of history. That's how you get a monograph published. Because what happens is I'm asking you for a comparison.
Allow me to.
Wait,
can I keep on
because
going?
you're going on a divagation. I'm asking about currently, right now, America in comparison to Weimar Republic, and then you bring in other decades I haven't even asked about.
Because to answer your question, I think the similarities are so weak and pale, such as saying, well, Hitler was a
pale?
Yes, because saying like Hitler was a vegetarian, Hitler had a dog. So, but I would say the similarities between Trump's rise to power is much more like Churchill, Thatcher, and Reagan.
Is there a similar populist movement? Yes or no?
No different than William Jennings Bryan or Teddy Roosevelt.
Sure.
I say Trump is more like Teddy Roosevelt than anything that happened in the
That's
interwar
fine.
period.
You can make
or Trump
those
was more like
arguments. That's
Alexander Hamilton. That is my argument.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there an economic decline happening right now in America? Is there a promise for economic prosperity? Is there this promise
now
that
there
every
is,
despot makes that they need power in order to help humanity, but then they end up using it? I mean, there's been, who was it, Anthony Ogle, one of the congressmen that threw the idea of changing the Constitution to have a third term? Doesn't that concern you for a second?
Allow me to, but just, what kind of despot is Donald Trump?
Not yet.
Hold
the
on.
question is the reason why you observe
I got 5
point.
words in. You shouldn't do this to your kids in class, by the way. You should let them get
Ask
their arguments
questions?
out. No,
Ask questions.
Interrupt them. Interrupt them if they're
Because
paying
you're
you to
not
be
answering
here,
my
okay?
question.
But allow me to finish my argument, if I can, which is, without interruption, which is this, which is that if President Trump was really a despot, you want to interrupt me so bad.
I'm holding back for you.
Or was going to be a despot, what kind of a despot allows his opponents to criticize him, allows open and robust free speech, and allows the continuation of the true fulfillment of liberal democracy? What kind of a despot does that?
It gets to the core of my first question. At what point does it go from liberator to despotism? That's my question. And the whole point of making the comparison is to provide that critical lens of interpretation of at what point would you go from celebrating Trump to being concerned that it's going too far. Can I give you a scenario which kind of solidifies this for me? Let's say all of a sudden you have a knock on your door at 2 a.m. There's a family there, a mother, father, and 2 kids. They're illegal immigrants, and they're asking you to hide them because ICE is coming to get them. What's your response to that?
I hand them over to ICE.
Okay, you would hand them over to ICE. Okay, right. How is that not different than the exact same narrative that was constructed during Hitler's reign of removing Jews from Germany?
Shame on you for comparing deportation efforts to Auschwitz and the extermination efforts.
It started with deportation.
That is such a ridiculous.
No.
Not everything is the Holocaust. Not everything is Auschwitz. Let me tell you the core difference.
You're the one who brought in the Holocaust here. I did not.
Number one,
I did not bring in that extreme. You're the one who's talking the extremes. I'm trying to have...
You did bring up the extreme.
No.
You said, how is it different? Who brought it up, me or him?
No. I was mentioning deportations. The Jews were deported first.
Allow me to tell you how it is different. They broke the law to come here, and we are enforcing the law.
The Jews broke the citizen laws before they were deported as well.
Hold on.
They were constitutionally committed there.
These laws have been on the books for well over 150 years, that you cannot illegally enter the United States.
The Constitution can be amended and shifted.
In Weimar Germany, they created new, ridiculous, arbitrary, evil laws to go after another.
They were still the laws of the time.
These are old laws that are reapplied to our times. I want to ask one final question, because I know you have to get to class.
Yeah, I do.
And you are a professor, right? What is a woman?
In all honesty, in response, I mean, anyone who's biologically a woman that has the genitalia of a woman can be a mother. Okay, good. So, this is what I enjoyed this conversation. I very much appreciate it, but it's a little bit of a disappointment, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm not an ideologue. I would really like to step back and observe what is happening now, to read the times. And as a historian, my training is to look back at some period. It may be tunnel vision because my areas of expertise happens to be the interwar period, but I can't help but find similarities. And when I come ask you, what do you think about the similarities? Immediately you push me to the extreme. You're wanting to promote dialogue here, but when it comes to like asking an honest question, asking to almost like provide a critical exposition of it, is kind of like now it gets to the point that the conversation is
No, I mean, look,
down.
I'll be honest. Like, I asked you a very simple question about interwar period. You know what the Darnells is with Churchill, and so I don't take what you say that seriously.
My expertise has to
But
do with the policy of appeasement.
secondly, I reject the entire premise of just looking at everything through the interwar period, because what have they called Donald Trump since day one? They've called him Hitler, and they've called every one of us that wear these hats and these red hats Nazis. And it is so ridiculous, and it's so repulsive, and it's so insulting. Instead, as a historian, you should not just try to find similarities. You have an obligation to find differences. Say, how is Trump different than the interwar period? How is Trump different than Adolf Hitler? Can you tell me 3 ways he's different?
I can give you 100 ways in which he's different.
Okay, but then you
Different
came up
culture,
here
different
with just the similarities.
Would you like me to have come up here and talked about all the similarities? Or I mean, is this conversation supposed to prove me wrong?
Again, yes, they were both, men with XY chromosomes, and you could go through all the similarities.
Right, and that's making a trite argument.
This is really important. Is that our current. We are prisoners of the talking points of that everything bad is Hitler and everything bad is Nazi Germany.
That way. I just despise.
But you're actively playing into it. Instead, as a historian, what you should be saying
you're
is
not even allowing me to ask the question.
Allow me to finish. Instead, as a historian, what you should be saying is, I know this period than anybody else better. And I think it's ridiculous when people even get close to asking these questions.
Sure.
You are failing as a historian not to lead people towards that.
There's a big difference.
You are failing as a professor not to do that.
Because if a student walks into my class...
Let me tell you why. I'm going to finish. Because all of a sudden it justifies violence and death threats against us because the left is propagandized by professors like you being told that we are Nazis all the time. No. And they come after us.
I haven't called anyone here a Nazi whatsoever.
Everything you have said is the embedded through line.
If my student walks into my class and starts pointing everything at fascist, I provide that correction. You did point out this is my area of expertise, and you won't even allow me to ask the question and make the comparison.
No, we allowed you to do it, and then you said, here's all the similarities, and it's a great grave of concern.
I have not given one criticism to your character or to your intelligence. I've been up here and you've done it multiple times to me.
I'm not taking money from kids to go them study history at the University of Florida. I don't have a PhD, and you do. Okay, so the incumbent intellectual advantage is on you. You have a PhD. I do not. You have a moral obligation when kids go into debt into your class and when you have a public platform to lead them towards saying, actually, no, the people in media are misrepresenting this, and this isn't actually the rise of Nazi Germany. Instead, you're like, well, we should consider this, and the similarities are kind of eerily and chilling, which is complete nonsense.
This is my area of study. But I do have one thing, and I'll go ahead, and I do appreciate your time, I do. I remember during the election night in November, I sat back and I was going through YouTube channels who was doing the coverage, and I actually enjoyed your coverage. And there's a point in which Trump won Pennsylvania that you got emotional, and you actually shed a tear or two. I wonder at one point in that emotional response goes from felicity and joy of shedding a tear of this liberator to actually sorrow of seeing that this is going to get to the point where it could lead to oppression. And that's where my question was.
Do you know why I cried on election night?
Because you thought it was a restoration of the Judeo-Christian values that are inherent to the Constitution.
Let me tell you why, because I think you might appreciate this as a historian. Joe Biden sent the entire federal government after Turning Point USA and me personally. They wanted me in federal prison.
Right.
And by the way, that's what despots do, not Donald Trump. Let me finish. And so when Donald Trump won, it was a sigh of relief that maybe I won't have to go to federal prison.
Sure.
Maybe I can actually be around my kids. And maybe we can live in a free society.
Criticizing Trump does not mean I support Biden.
I never said you did,
Right.
but you also should, and I want you to do this, I want you in your next class also say, well, here's all the similarities between Joe Biden and Adolf Hitler. And there's a lot, but I don't do that because I think it's intellectually sloppy, historically very dangerous, because not everything can be compared to the most evil person ever to live. In fact, maybe we should, as a society, reserve that and say, we're only going to use the Hitler reference very rarely, very sparingly. Putin is Hitler. Trump is Hitler. MAGA is Hitler. Instead, let's take a step back and say, no, this was a unique evil, a horror. And comparing everything to that period, not what you're doing, but you're getting close to it, cheapens the evil of that period.
Or focus on the comparison, gets rid of the ideological rhetoric.
Or talk about the differences, not just the comparison, because the differences will de-radicalize
If you and I were sitting down having a beer, we would have talked about the differences and the similarities.
I'd be having a club soda.
With this environment here, I focus on the differences. So I appreciate the conversation.
Thank you very much. Have a good class. Thank you.
Yes, the mic is over there.
Thank you. A very, very short question.
What do you mean?
Well, it seems to me that in the whole of the current US proposition, that Ukraine is being the bad guy.
In what way? We funded Ukraine upwards to $200 billion.
Absolutely. But
We just signed a mineral deal with Ukraine, not Russia.
yeah, but you are expecting Ukraine to give up 20% of its territory to someone who invaded it.
Well, is Crimea part of Russia or Ukraine?
Ukraine.
That's where we don't agree.
Well, I'm afraid that's part of international treaty. That's not up for grabs.
Well, it's interesting. I mean,
That's
hold on. I mean, even Zelensky has said he's willing to give up Ukraine.
no.
Who's
America signed the agreement that gave Ukraine Crimea
Right.
when
and
the
Putin
Soviet
annexed.
Union ended.
Right. It was done. First of all, it never should have been done. It was largely ceremonial.
No.
But however,
whether
it was
shouldn't have
annexed
been, it
under
was
Obama.
done.
Yes, and it was a mistake, and it should be given back to Russia as a sign of good gesture to end this conflict.
Okay.
But who's currently controlling Crimea? Where was the Russian Navy headquartered in World War II? Where was the end of World War II signed? This is very
I'm not
important.
doubting that. I'm not doubting that. I'm just saying that if we're being logical on what has happened, that you are now arguing against that flow. And I don't understand it. Because actually, why is Ukraine the bad guy?
No, I said they're bad. They're not the bad guy.
Yeah, well, you said they were both bad, but one was more bad.
Correct,
than the other.
yes.
So why is Ukraine bad?
Well, there's a lot wrong with Ukraine. First of all, they're not a democracy. Zelensky refuses to hold an election.
Well, no, he can't hold an election.
Oh, wait, did
because-
Churchill hold an election during the war?
Because under his constitution...
Hold on, Lincoln held an election during the war. That's not true. He can call an election. He can call a snap election. He's full dictator of the country.
No.
Because he knows that the people of Ukraine would kick him out immediately because he's deeply unpopular. In fact, if he wanted to show a statement to the world, he would call an election and win by 80% and say, see, I'm super popular. So that's number one. I have a problem with that. I have a problem with a person being propped up as a government we're sending $200 billion to that refuses even to face his voters.
Okay, I can't agree with you factually on that at all.
Okay.
I mean, constitutionally, Ukraine is not able to hold an election because it's under military law at the moment, and that's just a matter of fact.
Again, he can, as a prime minister or president, he could do whatever he wants.
You can't.
Okay, all right,
He
we're going to
can't
just go back
sign
and
an
forth with each
executive order and change their constitution.
Okay.
Neither can the American president either, so
Okay.
hopefully there's a bit of...
He could even do a ceremonial election to see where he actually stands with the
I
people.
think we call those opinion polls.
Yes, and they're very negative.
Firmly ahead in the opinion.
Again, but you would agree that a person that holds on to power without the election of the sovereign is pretty questionable.
No, not in those circumstances.
Okay, then we disagree.
No, okay, that's fine. But give me another reason why Ukraine...
They are the most corrupt country in Europe that never even met the most remote standards of joining NATO. Do not know where a lot of this money is going.
I don't disagree that there is a problem with corruption, but the most corrupt country in Europe, are you sure about that?
I'd have to think, I'd have to double or triple think about that, but they're very corrupt.
Okay, so that's a little bit doubtful. It's not absolute.
Well, I mean,
There's plenty of corruption around. I mean, let's face it, we are talking about comparison with some of the states you're doing business with in the Gulf.
Oh, of course, but we're not giving them money, they're giving us money. That's a difference, right? Saudi Arabia is...
Oh, so it's fine.
Well, hold on a second.
It's morally acceptable to take money from corrupt people.
Well, hold on. First of all, as far as morally acceptable, you do what's best in the benefit of your country. And so, for example, we were allied with Russia during the Second World War, and I'm glad we were. And I would ask you,
Don't forget.
how much money is too much money to send to Ukraine? We're at $200 billion right now.
I don't think you have to send any more money to Ukraine.
We agree.
I think you have to agree to support them as a free country and perhaps sell them weapons, like you're very happy to sell weapons to less free countries. And I think Europe will pick up the slack, as we ought to. And I don't disagree with some of the comments about Europe not looking after its own security. I just don't get this approach, which was supposedly to end the war quickly, which now seems to be elongating it, and in doing so, throwing up a smokescreen of very variable facts, if they are facts at all, about how things occurred, which actually isn't helping things. And if people can't see that Putin stalling, I'm just...
I agree with you. I think he might be stalling.
And therefore, and I think even your president has acknowledged the fact that he thinks he might be stalling.
That's correct. So we don't have a disagreement there.
No, we don't. No,
We just have a disagreement about the efficacy of tactics, and we don't know. And I'm willing to say we could be wrong.
No. Oh, well
of course you could be wrong in life.
Yeah. I mean, we could all be wrong. But actually bringing that war to an end consistently actually isn't going very well. And I would just suggest to you that whatever tactics have been used are perhaps not the best. And they are certainly inconsistent with what's going on in the Middle East and how America has been treating parties in the Middle East. But I've had enough of your time.
No, that's a fair contention.
Appreciate
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Hi, Charlie. Before we start, I want to say I'm a professor here at WSU, and
Well, thank you for no, don't boom. What do you teach?
Fair enough. I'm a sociology professor. I actually teach environment and climate change. Don't worry, that's not my question. I have no desire to talk about that today. Before I start, though, I actually want to surprise you maybe a little bit and say that I appreciate that you're here. If nothing else, hold on. If nothing else, as someone who wants so badly to see our students engaged in politics and the life of the mind, this is great, and you should give yourselves a hand for showing up and be out here to talk about ideas. I do want to focus my question, if I can ask a question rather than doing this whole polemic thing, on the students that are here. So I've taught here for 6 years. I've gotten to know hundreds of our students. Every semester I ask them what they care about, what they want, what concerns them. And I think you probably know this, what scares them the most is that the day that they leave here and they go on the job market, they enter the labor pool, that they're not going to find a job. They're not going to find a job. They're going to have a hard time buying a home. They're not going to be able to afford to have a family. Do you agree with that? Do you all agree with that?
Well, largely. Okay. I mean, if they're studying sociology, they might not be able to find a job.
Well,
but I mean,
fair enough. Yeah.
You're kind of proving that college is not really a good use of time.
So for what it's
if
worth,
the students
Charlie,
you're talking to can't find jobs, why are they learning from you?
Sorry, for what it's worth, Charlie, I mostly don't teach sociology students. I mostly teach students from across campus who are interested in things like the environment and climate change. I teach very few sociology students. There's actually a lot of environmental science, engineering,
even
finance,
more so,
accounting.
Yeah.
A lot of people with the kinds of degrees that you think are very valuable. Anyway, they remain concerned. What I would love to hear from you, genuinely, is what you believe the Trump administration has done in these first 4 months that is making the economic futures of these young people better.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's been in office for 80 days, but quite a lot. Number one, the price of oil is already down, so it's easier for everyone here to be able to drive home. The gas is going to be cheaper, which also will lower inflation. Number two, a tax bill will hopefully be passed, which is no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, largest middle-class tax cut in history. Yeah. So everyone here that's going to have a job where overtime is incorporated, they'll be able to keep more of their money. Number three, we're opening up federal lands to build more homes, which is a great thing because home ownership is way inaccessible for a lot of people in this audience. And it's going to take some time. And one of the main reasons why President Trump won is because we were able to move the youth vote rather significantly and substantially because the Democrat Party, A, took younger voters for granted. I think we can agree on that.
Absolutely.
And B, they did not have an optimistic, hopeful agenda for home ownership, for getting married and having children in this country. So I would like to see the Trump administration go even further and make it so that every young person in this country can have accessibility to be able to own a home. I think they should prohibit major funds like BlackRock from buying up private family homes so that we have to compete against them. And I'll just do another thing I'm privately lobbying for and publicly, because I'll say it here, is I don't think the Chinese Communist Party should be able to buy up farmland in the western part of the United States.
Absolutely.
And with that, single-family homes. So that's just some of the ideas here.
Sure. So can I respond? I actually agree with most of what you're saying. I'm not sure that opening up federal lands for housing is going to really solve our housing crisis. I'm not sure lowering the cost of gasoline is really going to deal with the other kinds of inflationary pressures that the Trump administration is putting on the economy, because you didn't really mention the most important thing that he's done, which is place massive tariffs on imports into the United States, which has caused retaliatory tariffs, which are putting economic pressures on American businesses. So it's not only actually jacking up the price, it's functionally a tax on all of us. We're all just going to pay extra for things that get imported. So there's inflation. But all of this conflict, the import, the cost of living going up, the pressure is being put on businesses also means that the odds of a recession are also going up. By every estimate, not just academic economists, but economists from the government, as well as economists who are working in finance or in the private sector. How do you reconcile the increasing cost of living, the odds of a recession, with the idea that the Trump administration is making the economic futures of young people better?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I fully acknowledge that what we inherited from Joe Biden was, no, I mean, of course, you inherit. You want me to prove to you how bad the economy was we inherited?
No, sorry, just
you can laugh and chuckle.
Real quick. I think that the problems facing the American economy are bipartisan. They've been caused by both parties over 40 years.
Hold on, let me prove to you how
that's
that's
not
not
a Biden
true.
problem.
No,
It's not an Obama problem. It's a Bush and Biden and Obama problem.
No, hold on. Allow me to finish my point.
Go for it.
And the audience, your students, will teach you something. Is that okay?
I would love that.
Who had a stronger economy, Joe Biden or Donald Trump's first term? It's not so. So you could say it's a bipartisan problem, but when Donald Trump was president, blue-collar workers and young people saw their incomes rise faster than the 1%. When Joe Biden was president, the wealthy got wealthier than any other time in American history. We saw the 1% explode their asset class, and young people and workers had a tougher time. As far as tariffs go, we're still very, let's just say, new into this rather risky experiment that the American people voted for. It could raise prices, or it could end up being where we strike really good trade deals and we sell more of our own products to these countries. And tariffs are a forcing function to open up markets. But I think it's actually really promising that a president is willing to risk even his own political favorability to do something that every other politician has promised, which is to protect the American worker. I really think that's political courage in spades. And I could address the other points, but if you'd like to interject.
You're right. Like it's risky. And I think that's an excellent way to frame it. So I guess my follow-up question is, what's the theory behind how this will work, and how long do we need to wait until we give up on the experiment?
Well, first and foremost, we don't know whether. So when you are the incumbent economic player, tariffs can help you. The entire world would love to be a consumer economy. We are a consumer economy. But if you are only a consumer economy, that comes with some problems. We don't make vitamin C in this country. It's all made in China. No, it's a real thing. You literally can't survive without vitamin C. Our antibiotics are made in China. You can laugh all you want. Our pharmaceutical materials, our aluminum, our iron, our rare earth minerals. We can't make a drone without at least half the components or parts made in mainland China. That's a national security problem. And so by using prudence, which is, of course, one of the highest of all the virtues, President Trump is able to weigh the costs and the benefits while also asking the most important question. Am I going to be able to have America not be a vassal state to the Chinese Communist Party while also improving the well-being of the people who voted for me, and not just people who voted for me, but every American person, every American citizen? Finally, if tariffs are nothing but downsides, why does China use them? There are some upsides potentially to tariffs, to protect some industries or to incentivize domestic production. And finally, I think I want to double down and reiterate this point, which is that the people in this audience that voted for President Trump were trying to send a message to their leaders that you haven't listened to us. The experts have gotten so much wrong. You guys stole prom away from us. You stole graduation away from us. You guys from the COVID lockdowns. And it's time for us to try something new. I'm simply just...
That's great. I don't know what that has to do with the question that I asked, which was about the use of tariffs. I don't know what that has to do with prom.
Well, hold on. But
no. You're redirecting the question. I
want
to talk to you about the tariffs.
Can I tell you what it has to do with tariffs, actually? Because I'll complete the point. Because you have a PhD and I didn't go to college, so let me maybe make sense of it for you, okay? But I was saying, what it has to do with tariffs is that they don't trust what the experts have been saying, because the experts locked down this generation and unnecessarily masked them for 2 years. So when the experts say tariffs don't work, excuse us when we say, actually, you have completely invalidated all of your predictions the last couple of years. Do you see how they connect?
Well, I see how that connects to how people think about tariffs. I think that's different than what tariffs actually do.
Well,
and it's perfectly fine to be frustrated.
That's what they do.
Now you let me talk.
Well, hold on.
You let me talk.
Well,
you keep telling me not to interrupt you. I'm not interrupting you.
That's what you think they do. I'm going to add some context to what you're saying. However, we have not yet done an experiment of tariffs as the incumbent economic superpower when we have mass robotics, artificial intelligence, we are energy independent, and our greatest adversary is energy dependent. So you don't know what's going to happen, and the American people voted for the experiment.
Well, then let me redirect you back to the question that I asked you and that you didn't answer. So it's an experiment. It's risky. These are your words. These are the words you have used. Yeah. How long do we have to wait? And when do we know that they've worked? Is it 3 years? Is it 4 years? Is it 4 years from now? Prices are still up.
Well, prices are not going up.
Hiring
Inflation is going down.
No. Inflation is not going to go down.
But it already is, though.
You've put a tax. You've increased the cost of something. That's what a tariff does, Charlie.
So, Doctor, what's your
Bugden.
name? Buddington? Bugton. Dr. Bugton. How does one avoid a tariff?
Do you mean, like, how do we not impose tariffs
if
intentionally on ourselves?
But let's educate the audience. If you're Toyota, how do you avoid a tariff?
In the current climate, you would build cars here, which Toyota
Exactly.
does. Toyota invests $1 billion a year in
Trillions of
building
dollars are
cars.
coming into the United States thanks to tariffs. Trillions of dollars. NVIDIA pledged $500 billion.
Those have nothing to do with the tariffs.
Hold
Those
on.
were pre-existing agreements,
Toyota
Charlie.
just announced 10 new plants in Indiana and Ohio because of the tariffs.
Okay,
Hyundai the same.
Again,
No, that
how long do we wait?
They are. But hold
how
on.
long until they build those plants? Is it
Well,
next
actually,
year? Is it 5 years? Is it 6 years?
They've announced it. They're going to break ground soon. However, I think the more operative question that you're asking is that if something doesn't work, President Trump will not follow it blindly because he's not an ideologue on this. You can laugh and
I agree
you
that
can
he's
kind
not an
of
ideologue,
shrug your
for what it's
shoulders. In fact, he's a patriot. Unlike the prior president, he actually cares about the well-being of the American people. And so if what he is doing with tariffs start to have overwhelming evidence that it's not working for the American people, then he will pivot or adjust. But let me tell you the other component. We're about to pass a massive tax bill in conjunction with the tariff strategy that will make us the most desirable market on the planet to do business. The American worker is about to take more money home than they ever have in the last 50 years. Again, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime. We're going to have a massive middle-class tax cut, an expanded child tax credit, things that the Democrats and Joe Biden refuse to do. President Trump is going to deliver in massive numbers. So I would like to say, despite what the experts say, oh, there's a recession coming, it might be true, but again, this is the same expert class that has completely lost any credibility with the American people the last couple of years. President Trump's been in office for 80 days. Remember when everyone was complaining about the price of eggs? Well, the price of eggs has gone down. The price of oil has gone down dramatically, like $20 a barrel. Give President Trump some time. And by the way, it only took him 10 days to solve the border crisis. Turns out we did not need a border bill. We just needed a new president to secure the southern border.
For what it's worth, I haven't had lunch, so I'm going to leave and let the next person talk. Sure. I just want to say, I do want to reiterate my point, and just for you to reflect on and for everyone here to reflect on. It is a risk, and the president has taken an enormous gamble, not with some abstract thing called the economy. It's your future. It's your jobs. It's your ability to get hired. It's the ability to buy a house and have kids.
No, who took the biggest? I got to interject.
And all you need to do, all that anyone should really bother doing, is not to fight about it, but to just pay attention to what actually happens and to reflect on whether what Charlie said is true, that this president is actually a patriot and is actually adapting and is actually doing things to make your life better. Okay? It's good to talk
and
to you, Charlie.
they voted for him for a reason because they saw his first term and how well he did and how Joe Biden destroyed the country intentionally. Thank you, Doctor, and I wish you well.
Well, that's a tough one, you understand, listening to Charlie and this very professor debating. But then if you look at, you understand, the professor, you understand, the questions asking, you understand, at what point do you think that Trump went from liberator to a despite? Of course, if I should answer, you understand, the professor, I will says that Trump went from liberator to a despite when he see that the country is not working, when he see that people are coming to the country and they are breaking the law. At that point in time, he stepped in. And how did he step in? He stepped in by stopping the asylum program that people were manipulating it to allow people coming to the country, and then they are breaking laws. They're taking the citizen job and doing some certain things they are not supposed to do. At that point in time, you understand, that's when he came on, you understand, with the war. That is during his first time. He started, you understand, the world. And then last week, I was listening to the Trump, and then he was talking about, you understand, at the moment, there's no illegal, you understand, immigrant, you understand, coming to America. And then we could talk about, you understand, these are things that happened, you understand, in some a year ago, and then you could see over 10,000 people, you understand, coming into the country, you understand, through the southern, you understand, border. But this situation whereby not even one, even him, he was even saying that he even find it hard, you understand, to believe. So at that point in time, as he do so, you'll bear with me that what America is getting safe again. And then we can also look at, you understand, the situation of the Second Amendment. Second Amendment in the sense that we could look at, you understand, this Catholic, you understand, shooting that happened. You could see that, you understand, Trump have to step in. And how did he step in? He stepped in, you understand, by bringing, you understand, the eyes and some of the security, you understand, agency. And then they are cracking down, you understand, some of these people, you understand, using these illegal, you understand, firearms, right? They are using some of these, you understand, firearms. And then as he is doing so, what is making, you understand, the country what safe again. I know that some people will say that, of course, but he is stepping on the Civil Right Act of people, you understand, of course, having the liberty of people having the liberty, you understand, to bear firearms and do whatever, you understand, they want. But at the end of the day, you understand, he is trying to keep the people, you understand, safe. This is the reason why I always says that, you understand, I know that we could talk about people are free to do whatever they want by promoting, you understand, free speech and all that. But I will say that in a situation whereby it's causing national, you understand, unrest, then in that context, you understand, the president, you understand, will have to step in to maintain peace, you understand, in the nation. And that's exactly, in a sense, what Trump, in a sense, in doing. But in the situation of trying to equate it, in a sense, to Hitler, I think that I should leave it, in a sense, to some of you to kind of respond to it. Because when Trump was trying to fight some of these illegals, in a sense, from entering, in a sense, the country, and then that's when he stepped in by trying to use executive order to stop all these citizenship, in a sense, by birth. And then he feels that people are manipulating the process, even though the Supreme Court, in a sense, end up, in a sense, overtuning it. So when you try to look at, in a sense, some of these couple of things, in a sense, and then you feels that, okay, you want to relate them, in a sense, with that of Hitler, then it's just up to you. I will just leave it, in a sense, for you to look at, in a sense, history, and then see, in a sense, if you think that, in a sense, by some of the things, in a sense, he is doing to keep America safe again, if he feels that you want to compare it with that of Hitler, then it's up to you. You understand? It's up to you. But then, as for me, I will say that, you understand, you don't have to compare it, because Trump is just doing everything to make each and every one of us, you understand, safe. As far as, you understand, you are in the American soil, then you should be safe. And then that is the reason why I see he come up with this, you understand, situation of tariff. As he do, in a sense, some of this tariff, people says that, of course, some of the goods, in a sense, we are getting more costlier, in a sense, in the market, and then things are getting terrible, in a sense, economically, in a sense, when it comes, in a sense, to the people. But at the end of the day, when you look at it, in a sense, critically, you got to realize that what people are now coming to America, and they are building businesses, in a sense, in America, creating a lot of employment and bettering, in a sense, the economy. And then that's why I see the inflation rate, in a sense, is in decline. Why do you think, in a sense, some of these things are happening? Is because of what? The tariff. But when Trump was implementing, in a sense, the tariff, everybody, in a sense, was complaining. But at the end of the day, as some of these people are coming and then creating, you could see, you understand, how even the European Union, should we talk about, you understand, the Arab nations, you could look at this, the billions and trillions of dollars that is being pouring in, you understand, to the American, you understand, economy. Is it not something better? But when Trump started it, you understand, people complain. When Trump started, you understand, to put tariffs on China, people complain. But at the end of the day, people are enjoying it. So if you look at, you understand, some of these things and you feel that you want to compare it, you understand, with Hitler, then it's up to you. You understand? We listen to Charlie, we listen to the professor. Both of them, you understand, make their own, you understand, submission. But then if you want to look at them, you understand, based on the differences, or you feel that you want to look at it based on similarities, then it's up to you. Everybody, you understand, have their own choice on how they look at things, or their lenses on how they see things. So it's up to you. But then let me see your thought and opinion at the comment section. And may God bless you as you do so. So you have a wonderful day, and goodbye.